Hello everyone, my name is lukewhiteheadesports and welcome back to another Hot Lap guide, where today I'm going to be guiding you through Brands Hatch. Now, this is one of my personal favourite tracks. I'm a little bit biased because it's right near where I live, but it's still a brilliant track nonetheless. There's a lot of corners in a very short amount of time, similar to other tracks such as Laguna Seca. Obviously, it's around 1 minute 21 this lap, and very many corners that can catch you out. You've obviously got Turn 1 Paddock Hill, you've got the legendary Grand Prix section in Sector 2 and 3, which are also hugely challenging. And as I say, it's a very short lap. Even on race fuel, it's a very, very short lap. So there's no real break in the lap. So it's very, very challenging overall. But that's why I'm guiding you through it today. So hopefully I can make the track a little less difficult to negotiate for you guys. So as was the case for my other hot lap guides, the link to the raw hot lap footage is in the description down below, and also the pop-up in the top right hand corner of your screen. So without further ado, let's get into it. So turn one, it's one of the most difficult turn ones you'll ever be greeted with, Paddock Hill. And obviously it's a downhill braking zone. You want to be braking around the 50-meter board, if not about 70-ish meters at the latest. The closer you can get to this board, the better. But yeah, for this corner, you want to be braking as straight as is possible, which is very difficult because obviously the braking zone itself is not straight; it's curved. But you generally try and go in a little narrower than the actual white line here, which can make this corner very difficult. Turning in, you kind of want to aim for these bollards here and this orange barrier, if you can see it straight ahead. You've got two orange barriers on the outside. The second orange barrier is where you want to be aiming for to turn in, because generally where you aim to turn or aim to hit the apex, you're going to hit the apex a little bit further round the corner than that, as is the case with just general momentum. So if that's your reference point, it's a good reference to turn in, because otherwise this corner is completely blind. But coming to here, you want to try and avoid the curb if possible, because it does tend to throw you out into the gravel. But you can see as soon as we've got to the apex, we're straight back on the throttle, because it's one of those corners where you want to slow the car down on the entry to avoid you sliding off the track, but at the same time you still want to carry a lot of cornering speed, because it's very easy to overslow and you will just lose tons of time. So getting on the throttle, using all the road possible. It's crucial not to dip a wheel in the gravel. It seems kind of obvious, but a lot of people, you know, it's crucial to push the limits of the track as much as possible, but it's very easy to dip a wheel. And if you do that, you'll just bleed a lot of time up to the hill. And obviously Druids is, although it's very difficult to overtake, it's one of the key overtaking opportunities of the track. So you want to leave yourself as, as safe as possible going to here from threats. So coming into Druids, braking just under the gantry, pointing the car towards the corner. Again, aiming for these orange barriers because the apex itself is actually a bit blind, because you come over the brow of a hill. And as is the case with a lot of corners on this track, you can actually brake deceptively late here, because obviously the braking zone is uphill, so the car is going to be naturally not going as quickly, and naturally slowing down, I guess, when you're off the throttle. So down to gear one, keeping the car on the white line as much as possible. Short shifting up to gear 2 for better traction, and getting a straight exit. Only going to the white line if possible. You want to try and keep the car as tight on the exit as you can, because you want to bring the car right over to the right hand side before Graham Hill Bend. Braking at the start of the curb, if not at the previous marker board if you're not hugely confident. Down a gear, into the next corner, hooking the curb, but not too much, because if you take too much curb, the car will just jump. It's a very difficult balance to get right, but if you hook a little bit of the curb, or put one wheel on the curb, it gives you a lot more grip. Through here, you're going to use as much curb on the exit as you can, but be very careful, because this is probably the main corner on the track where track limits excursions will happen. So if you can avoid invalidating your laps, or getting warnings in the race, this is one of the corners to be most careful of. So just bear that in mind when you're racing, and that makes it all the more crucial to get the car slowed down for that corner, and also make sure you hook at least one wheel on that curb. Coming to here, braking between the 50-meter board and also that orange barrier on the left. Braking kind of pointed towards the corner, down 2 gears. Train the brake until you get to this part here where the curb kind of juts out. That's where you want to be aiming to hit the apex, because this corner is very cambered at this point. So you can see on the track kind of slopes inwards at this point, and that's why you want to be aiming to hit the apex so late. and get a straight exit, because you can see here, get a big bump on the exit because the camera trails off on the exit. Using all the exit curb, but not too much, because if you bounce on that right hand curb, you can lose lots of time. Now, coming up to arguably the most challenging part of the circuit, you want to be braking between this orange barrier. I don't know if we'll go back a second. The orange barrier on the right hand side and the 50-meter board. That's kind of what you want to use as your marker to brake here. And you don't want to brake too much, because you want to carry a lot of mid-corner speed. And the corner is cambered inwards, so you can actually carry quite a lot more speed than you expect. Coming to here, down to gear 4, getting on the throttle at this bump here. And that's kind of your reference. The car does try to slide a little bit, but you've just got to try and push through the side if possible. Use all the exit curb. Don't be afraid to use this exit curb. You need it. You really need it. And then coming to here, braking just before the 50-meter board on the left-hand side, down to gear 3. This is a corner where there's two different approaches you can take. You can either miss this curb completely and take a wider entry line, or you can take lots of curb and grass like I've taken. This is all about just experimentation, and also depending on what car choice you use. Obviously, some cars, such as the Porsche, the Bentley, the McLaren, will be very tolerant to this approach of taking the grass, but other cars, such as the Ferrari, will just not like it. So it's all about trial and error here, but either approach is equally as fast, so that's something to bear in mind. As long as, again, you don't go out too wide here, because this is, like Graham Hill Bend, is one of those corners where you can very easily get a track cut. So it's one of those corners where you actually want to be a little bit conservative. The way I always take it is that first right-hander in the sector 2, you've got to push as hard as you can. But a second corner in this section, you've got to be really conservative. It's better to conserve a little bit of speed through here than to over-push, go on the gravel, and also end up in that left-hand barrier. That's never ideal. So coming out to here, braking just at the 50-meter board, or if you don't really want to look to the right-hand side, you can look at that orange barrier on the left. That seems to be a good marker for me. Down the gear. Don't take too much curb, because if you take too much curb, it will just throw you onto the grass. So it's very crucial to just be, again, pretty much the same as the last corner, be a little bit conservative, because, again, the corner is also blind, so it's very difficult to find a reference there. Now coming to the next corner, braking at the orange board. Again, this section is very, very crucial. It's very crucial to get in the camber, braking down to gear 3, turning in pretty much as soon as we start braking, and you basically want to be aiming for this where the curb is very thin. You want to be getting on the curb pretty much there as early as possible, because if you go on the curb any later, or try and turn in any later, you get on the marbles or don't get in the camber well enough, and you just slide wide. I had that quite a few times, and when you're carrying so much entry speed through Dingle Dell, which was the previous corner, the car is always going to want to slide out. So it's very crucial to get into the corner a bit earlier than you expect, to make sure you get the apex and can get on the throttle nice and early. So you can see we actually don't really do it optimally. We actually get a big kick of oversteer on the exit, which causes us to use too much exit curb. So if anything, you want to try and get in maybe a little bit earlier than I did into the apex. And then final corner, braking at the 50-meter board once again, down 2 gears, trying to get as close to these bollards and that curb as possible while not actually hitting it. Because if you do hit this curb, it does throw you out onto the gravel. So just be really careful. It's another corner where you want to be a little bit conservative, and prioritize the exit ultimately. Because again, if you put a wheel in the gravel, it can leave you open to overtaking opportunities or getting overtaken into Paddock Hill Bend. Be really careful to try and keep the car as narrow as you can, to not get on the white line or the grass, because it can easily spit you into the pit lane or into the inside barrier. Running up to the line, getting the tightest run to the line on the right hand side, and that is a lap of Brands Hatch, a 121.7 I believe, which is a pretty decent lap, not perfect. I think there's a 21.6, maybe even a 0.5 in there. But for me, it's so difficult to get up to that delta, because it's one of those tracks that's extremely difficult to get right at the best of times, and obviously there's so many different corners where you can make mistakes, lose a 100th here, 100th there, and it's very, very tough to get right. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this lap guide. I hope that it was beneficial. If it was, please leave a like down below, leave a comment as well. Also check out that raw hot lap footage as well, in the description or in the pop-up in the top right hand side. Share this video with your friends and any teammates that you think might benefit from it. But yeah, that is all, guys. Take care and enjoy your racing. Bye bye.